Before start this video, please subscribe my channel and click on bell icon. Thanks.
When the Civil War started in 1861, men from all over the country rushed to fight for their respective sides. There was less for women to do, by comparison, as they simply didn't engage in battle at the time. Sure, there were nurses aplenty helping out near the front lines and in war hospitals. And many more women assisted the war effort by doing things like servant work, domestic duty, and other labor-intensive jobs to help on the home front. But one of the most interesting aspects of the time was the employment of a rare and disparate group of women as spies. Both the North and the South used female spies in various ways throughout the war. Unsuspecting generals, soldiers, and military intelligence officers on each side had no idea they were being watched carefully by turncoat women in their midst. In this list, you'll learn all about 10 fascinating women who served as spies during the Civil War. They risked their lives to help their side in the vicious 4-year-long battle. Some of their stories are the stuff of movies. Now, more than 150 years later, historians still marvel at what they did to gather intelligence for their causes. Related, 10 famous people who were secretly spying on us. 10. Antonia Ford Antonia Ford was part of a well-off Virginia family prior to the Civil War. She was an educated woman when the conflict broke out, too, having earned a degree in literature from the Buckingham Female College Institute. That alone put her in the upper crust of accomplished women at the time of the war. And then, as the battles began to rage, she took a step nobody else saw coming. At first, informally, Antonia passed along little bits of military intelligence she'd heard from Union soldiers. She shared the info with Confederate lieutenants and even General J.E.B. Stuart. Realizing her value to the South's cause, Stuart had Antonia commissioned as an aide-de-camp. In his order, he demanded Confederate men regard Ford as a woman to be obeyed, respected, and admired. For months, Antonia worked her contacts, including a Union spy, and ferried information to Stuart. By 1863, Ford had shuttled so much information to Confederate generals that her spying was considered to be a decisive factor in Captain John Mosby's win at Fairfax that year. Mosby took 33 prisoners in the vicious battle, including Union Brigadier General Edwin H. Stoughton. But Antonia's personal luck would soon run out. A female Union spy by the name of Frances Jameson tricked Antonia into revealing her decree from General Stuart. Union soldiers swooped in to arrest her, and Ford was hauled off to prison. Her story doesn't quite end there, though. Amazingly, despite spying for her Confederate backers during the war, Ford fell in love with a Union major named Joseph C. Willard during her imprisonment. She gave up spying and married Willard. After the war, they had 3 children together. She lived out the rest of her life in quiet calm, but forever was known as the South's unlikely super spy. 9 Pauline Cushman Major Pauline Cushman Fryer, spy of the Cumberland. Pauline Cushman was working as an actress in New Orleans when she married a man named Charles Dickinson. Not long after the Civil War began, Dickinson died, leaving Pauline rudderless and adrift. She joined an acting troupe that made it up to Kentucky in the middle of the war. By 1863, she was offered $300 from 2 Confederate soldiers to give a toast to the South on stage. Behind the scenes, she was a Union supporter, as was much of the rest of her troupe. So she went to a Union colonel named Henry Moore to inquire about whether to accept the offer. He told her to do it, she did it, and then she got fired from the acting company. But the insider connection to those Confederate soldiers kicked off a new career for Pauline. Impressed by Cushman's diligence and attention to detail, Colonel Moore hired her on as a Union spy. Quickly, Pauline was sent to Nashville to carry out her duties. There, she ingratiated herself with local Confederate soldiers and Southern businessmen. She passed along bits and pieces of information to Union soldiers on the front lines throughout the rest of the battle. Her acting talents worked wonders during the last several years of the war. She was able to pretend to be somebody she wasn't, quickly build trust with a mark, and learn of troop movements or logistical plans. Many of her tips passed through to Union generals, who used them with great success in campaigns across Tennessee. At one point near the end of the war, she was finally caught by Confederate intelligence officers and arrested. They sent her to prison and ordered her to hang. At the last minute, though, Cushman was saved by the grace of a higher power. When the war ended, she was freed. Sadly, the rest of her life didn't turn out so well. She continued to act, but she never found fame or lasting fortune from the pursuit. Instead, all she got was a morphine addiction. By the time she died 3 decades later, in 1893, she had performed for the likes of P.T. Barnum. That was an incredible and unique achievement, but it didn't bring her financial success or popular adulation. She died penniless and struggling with seeking day after day of that persistent morphine fix. Former Union soldiers wanted her buried with the military honors she'd earned during the Civil War, but that never happened. Today, Pauline's amazing wartime exploits are mostly lost to history. 2. 8. Mary Richards Bowser. Mary Bowser, from slave to Union spy extraordinaire. Mary Richards Bowser was a black woman born into slavery in Virginia in the middle of the 19th century. Much of her early life is lost to history, and it's unclear entirely how or where she was raised. But the woman, who is also sometimes known to historians as Mary Elizabeth Bowser or Mary Jane Richards, was undoubtedly a slave laborer until she was freed by another woman named Elizabeth Van Lew in 1851. For the next 10 years, even though the Van Lew family ridded themselves of the disgusting act of slavery, many of their former slaves stayed nearby to work on the farm and make money. Bowser was one of those women, and she built a close connection with Elizabeth Van Lew. Thanks to Van Lew's oversight, Mary Bowser eventually received an education. When the Civil War broke out, she immediately backed the Union cause. And that's where things got really interesting. Van Lew was no Southern supporter herself, but she had connections right up to the top. Quickly, she realized she might be able to parlay those connections into a way to help the North win the Civil War and eradicate slavery in America forever. So in the final year of the war, Van Lew got her former slave a job in Jefferson Davis's Confederate White House in Richmond, Virginia. There, Davis and his cabinet members would routinely and openly discuss Confederate wartime policy. Bowser would stand by, serving the men with drinks and food, and listening carefully to the conversations. Then, she would go back to Van Lew and other Union sympathizers and report what she heard. Through it all, Bowser's strong ear and good memory helped the Union put the final nails in the Confederacy's metaphorical coffin. Before 1865 ended, the war was over, and Bowser played no small part in it. After the war, Bowser's whereabouts are again mostly lost to history. She appears to have spent a few months giving talks to others about her experience as a spy. And in 1867, records indicate she helped found a freedmen's school down in Georgia. At some point after that, she was said to have joined her husband in the West Indies as they struck out to make a new life away from America. Nobody is sure what happened to her after that. But at least one thing is certain, Bowser was instrumental as a former female slave spying secretly from right under the noses of the Confederacy's most powerful men. 7 Fanny Battle. Mary Frances Fanny Battle was born in Davidson County, Tennessee, in 1842. She was one of several children born to a wealthy plantation owner in the Nashville area. He sent Fanny and her brothers and sisters to a local prestigious school for their education. There, Fanny excelled at her studies. But on the eve of the Civil War, she was called back home. While she and her sisters settled in on the plantation and prepared to ride it out, her brothers and father went off to fight for the Confederacy. During the brutal war, her dad was taken prisoner by Union soldiers. Then, 2 of her brothers died in separate skirmishes while fighting for the South. Fanny and her family became enraged at these losses. So, she and one of her grieving sisters-in-law decided to take action. Thanks for watching. Credits to listverse.com. Please subscribe my channel for more videos.